It was a genuine surprise to a lot of us when we received the backstory of Haschwalth and Bazz-B during their final confrontation in the 1000-Year Blood War arc. The backstory of these two characters is packed full of themes of friendship, betrayal, and rivalry. In this video, I'll be breaking down and analysing the backstory of two of the most iconic Sternritter. We'll talk about the first time that they had met when they were just children while hunting for rabbits, and how over time their friendship had formed and their bond was eventually tested via the arrival of Yhwach into their lives. There is quite a lot to talk about with Haschwalth's quiet struggles that he was experiencing as a child, which were contrasted against Bazz-B's brash confidence. At that young age, Haschwalth was very different to the one that we know of in the present timeline, so it's going to be really interesting to dive into both of their backstories and to see how much these characters have changed over time. Be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be covering everything that there is to know about the backstory of Bazz-B and Haschwalth. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Holo Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. So their backstory is revealed to us between chapters 631 to 634 of the manga. During Haschwalth's younger years, he had first encountered Bazz-B while the two of them were hunting rabbits in the wild. Haschwalth had been visibly struggling, while Bazz-B, who had notably been wielding a spirit weapon, was able to easily shoot one down. He had then criticized Haschwalth's lack of skill and mastery in hunting, and when he had asked for his name, Bazz-B had accidentally revealed his identity while arguing that Haschwalth should introduce himself first. The young Bazz-B compliments him that he is pretty sly for making him introduce himself first. He believes that he has potential, but Haschwalth plays down all of the praise by stating that he didn't make him say his name. Bazz-B revealed it himself by accident. Haschwalth then questions why is he following him, to which Bazz-B reveals that he didn't think that a pitiful child like him would be able to successfully hunt down one of the rabbits, so he was watching over him. Haschwalth does admit that he has a lack of expertise, as he even reveals that he is unable to summon a Quincy bow, admitting that he is in fact pitiful. Bazz-B calls him Yugo and reassures him by saying that this isn't true, and he is only able to summon a bow because he is a self-proclaimed genius, and he isn't pitiful for not being able to properly utilize his powers yet. The young Haschwalth is quick to point out Bazz-B's contradiction, since he had called him pitiful first. Now interestingly, Bazz-B reveals that nobody their age is able to summon a Quincy bow. He then questions if any of Haschwalth's friends can do so, but he nervously admits that he doesn't really have any friends. Despite being harsh with him earlier on, it seems as though Bazz-B quickly feels sorry for Haschwalth following his admission that he is lonesome. Now surprisingly, the young Haschwalth does stand up for himself here by telling Bazz-B not to refer to him as Yugo, revealing that he doesn't like it. He also tells him that he doesn't have any parents and that he lives with his uncle. Haschwalth eventually tells Bazz-B to stop pestering him with questions because he needs to bring back home a rabbit. Kubo draws a panel of Haschwalth holding onto his arm, which appears to have bruise markings on it. Bazz-B notices this and gives him the rabbit that he had just killed earlier, since he was hunting in order to gloat about being a genius. Meanwhile, Haschwalth was hunting out of necessity as he needed to eat. This is conveyed to us very subtly by Kubo, but Bazz-B understands that Haschwalth must be getting beaten by his uncle, as he also hands over to him an emblem with the letter B engraved onto it, telling him that from now on he is his minion. He reassures him that he no longer has to worry about what grown-ups have to say because he will take it upon himself to teach him everything that he needs to know. Bazz-B reveals his desire for the two of them to become the ultimate Quincy's. Bazz-B, from the onset of their interaction, exhibits natural talent with Quincy abilities, and he has a strong sense of self-worth. When he had met Haschwalth, he easily demonstrates his Quincy abilities, and he boasts about being a genius. His level of confidence and his bold personality create an instant contrast with the shyness of Haschwalth, as he assumes a mentor-like role for him, nicknaming Haschwalth Hugo and offering to teach him everything that he knows. Bazz-B's initial impression of Haschwalth is somewhat dismissive, viewing him as a pitiful kid in need of guidance. It's clear that Bazz-B is moved by Haschwalth's circumstances, especially when he notices the bruises from his uncle's abuse. Giving him that rabbit was his gesture of kindness, highlighting that his arrogance is tempered by the empathy that he possesses. In making Haschwalth his minion and promising him protection, Bazz-B assumes a protective older brother role over him. This also strengthens Bazz-B's own sense of purpose. Haschwalth is insecure and he lacks confidence, and his abusive upbringing manifests in his lack of friends and the visible bruises that he has on his body, which further reinforces his low self-esteem. Bazz-B's confidence and his ambition inspire Haschwalth, who feels a spark of hope and motivation for the first time after meeting him. 6 months after Haschwalth and Bazz-B had first met, the small castle which Bazz-B's family had lived within was burnt down by Yhwach. Bazz-B describes Yhwach to be a monster who has taken over the Northern Territory. He comments on how Yhwach didn't do so with a bow and arrow, but instead with a strange power. During this time, Yhwach was said to have been alive for 200 years, and that it was rumored that he was the father of all Quincy. Bazz-B didn't care about any of this, as he tells a young Haschwalth that they are going to kill Yhwach, but in response, Haschwalth sounds reluctant to join him. Bazz-B reminds him that his forest was also burnt down by Yhwach, as he suggests that he can either come with him or roam aimlessly with his uncle in the charred remains of their homeland. Haschwalth then reveals that his uncle had died in the fire, so it was after this major event that the two of them had lived off of some gold which they had dug up from the remains of the fallen castle. Their aim was to kill Yhwach, as they hadn't openly stated it, but they decided to join Yhwach's forces, wanting to take him out by infiltrating into his ranks. 5 years after Yhwach had attacked their home, he declares that they will be conquering the Soul Society next, and in order to do so, they will need to form a military unit called the Sternritter. The fact that Haschwalth had committed to the same goal as Bazz-B demonstrates his loyalty to him, as well as his desire to escape his own tragic past. Bazz-B's desire for revenge after Yhwach had destroyed his family and his home becomes a defining aspect of his character. Bazz-B sees Haschwalth here as his companion on this journey, though he does begin to feel that Haschwalth's lack of Quincy skills may be a hindrance to his training. Nonetheless, his loyalty keeps him from abandoning his friend, as he thinks that Haschwalth's hard work may be a replacement for his lack of talent in Quincy abilities. During those 5 years, Bazz-B says that there was no reason for them to rest, as they laid low deep within the forest and they had honed their skills training day and night. Bazz-B was a natural and quickly became proficient with his abilities, but Haschwalth on the other hand continued to struggle. Bazz-B comments on Haschwalth's progress as he says that he had no talent as a Quincy. Even after 5 years of training, he was unable to gather reishi or even build a simple bow. We then learn that once in a few decades, a Quincy like Haschwalth is born. Historically, they were weeded out as failures within Quincy families. So for hundreds of years, a failed Quincy like Haschwalth hadn't survived. Even the mere mention of one had become an old folks tale. Bazz-B had started to feel like partnering with Haschwalth wouldn't bring him closer to killing Yhwach, but there was no doubt that he had trained harder than him in order to make up for his lack of talent. Now, for some reason, Bazz-B couldn't bring himself to leave Haschwalth behind. He wasn't sure if Haschwalth was aware of his pity, but one day Yhwach's military police had arrived and they announced the formation of the Sternritter, revealing the plan to invade the Soul Society, because Yhwach had rightly believed that if left unchecked, the Shinigami will eventually pose a threat to the Quincy. The selection process to be enlisted into the Sternritter will be strict. Despite this, Bazz-B immediately introduces himself along with the very nervous Haschwalth, stating that the two of them want to enlist into the Sternritter. He then challenges Yhwach's guard, trying to prove that he is strong enough to join the Sternritter, but before they clash, he is stunned by the arrival of Yhwach, who is sitting on top of Horsama. All of the surrounding Quincy appear to be held down to the ground by the incredible spiritual pressure of Yhwach, as we learn that he has arrived to pick up something that he has been looking for. Yhwach is in search of his right arm. Bazz-B believes that he is the one that Yhwach is looking for, but he is still pinned to the ground, struggling to get up. Strangely enough, everyone is overwhelmed by Yhwach apart from Haschwalth, which adds to this idea that Haschwalth is a special Quincy born once in 100 years. Yhwach reveals that he knows his name and declares that Haschwalth will be his right arm, much to his surprise. He adds that together they are a whole, and without question Haschwalth is enlisted into the Sternritter as Yhwach's advisor. Haschwalth thinks to himself that this is what he and Bazz-B had been training tirelessly for, and now that he has been chosen to be the Quincy leader's right arm, he has succeeded in their shared goal. But when Haschwalth nervously turns to Bazz-B asking him what he should do, he sees that Bazz-B is furious. Bazz-B believes that he was the talented one while Haschwalth was talentless. How could it be that Bazz-B, who was full of talent, was overlooked while the talentless Haschwalth was selected? I mean, neither of them were unable to make it. Bazz-B had believed that surely he would have had what it takes. Now this resentment that Bazz-B feels towards Haschwalth forms instantaneously as he questions why Haschwalth was selected and he was not. You can see the difference in the eye expressions between the two of them, as Bazz-B's fury makes Haschwalth think, why is it that he is looking at him like that? He cannot comprehend why Bazz-B isn't happy for him. Bazz-B pitied Haschwalth and kept him around, reinforcing his beliefs that he isn't talented, while Bazz-B continued to progress, thinking highly of his own talent and disregarding Haschwalth, even coming to regret partnering with him. In the end, the Quincy failure was selected to be the closest to Yhwach as his chosen special Quincy, and ultimately the talent of Bazz-B was outmatched by Haschwalth's unique birthright. After Yhwach gives the order to bring Haschwalth back to the castle, he ends up protesting as he shamefully admits that he has no talent as a Quincy, as he cannot even generate a bow or arrows. He draws Yhwach's attention to Bazz-B, who he states is more fitting to be by his side. Yhwach steps down from his horse and states that his eyes have not deceived him, revealing that the young boy has yet to understand the power that he possesses. He reveals that Haschwalth is the same as him. He is a unique Quincy who possesses the ability to share power with others. The leader of the Quincy admits that he had searched for a very long time, because since Yhwach's birth over 200 years ago, he was unable to find another Quincy with the same power as him. Bazz-B had realized that Haschwalth is in fact the chosen one. Unlike other Quincy, he is unable to absorb reishi from his surroundings in order to turn it into power. Haschwalth was born being able to give power to those around him. Yhwach reveals to him that he was able to gain power by learning how to bestow power upon others in order to cultivate this ability, and then he was able to take it back and become stronger after these individuals had died. It can be assumed that Haschwalth likely has a very similar power to Yhwach. Yhwach tells Bazz-B that he must have felt that his power was increasing daily the more time that he had spent with Haschwalth. He truly crushes Bazz-B's self-worth here by questioning if he had really believed that this was his own power. Bazz-B's expression drops as he is told to thank Haschwalth for having transformed him from being powerless into the genius that he proclaims to be. Yhwach then tells Haschwalth that he needs him. Now this comment lights up the young boy's eyes, because for once he is finally seen to be useful and not a burden to somebody. For all of Haschwalth's life up until this point, he had felt like a burden to his uncle, and then he was a burden to Bazz-B during those 5 years of training. Bazz-B, frustrated by having his beliefs crushed by the man who burnt down his home and killed his family, he fires an arrow towards Yhwach in an attempt to kill him. But Haschwalth catches the arrow, protecting his new leader. Now there is a fascinating contrast that happens here, because Haschwalth is now the one who appears to be cool and collected, while Bazz-B has a despair-ridden expression across his face, similar to the one that the nervous Haschwalth had 5 years ago when the two boys had first met while hunting rabbits. Through Kubo's artwork, he is able to convey these incredible expressions which make you feel the crushing defeat of Bazz-B and the triumphant rise of Haschwalth into his birthright. Haschwalth ended up becoming powerful, while Bazz-B is made out to be talentless without Haschwalth by his side. It is like Bazz-B has had his purpose stripped away from him and everything that he had believed about himself was a lie. Additionally, he is now alone without a home or a family to return to, while Haschwalth has been accepted as a worthy right arm to the father of all Quincy. From a narrative perspective, this is an inverse of the state of these two characters when they had first met. The manga version of this backstory is packed with so much emotion and subtlety that I truly am looking forward to seeing how it will be adapted into the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime. Core 3 has had so many anime exclusive editions, and I have no doubt that Kubo has planned some new material to be included to flesh out this backstory even further. There are several details within this backstory which can be easily missed, like Haschwalth being abused by his uncle, or the differences in the expressions of young Bazz-B when he is filled with confidence and purpose, in contrast to young Haschwalth who has no self-esteem and no purpose. Then by the end of the backstory, when Haschwalth is enlisted into Yhwach's army, the expressions are completely inverted, and this in my opinion is top tier character writing, as this entire flashback is seamlessly integrated during Haschwalth's battle against Bazz-B during the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Their final confrontation is given much needed depth and meaning thanks to the inclusion of this backstory. Bazz-B had now considered Haschwalth to be a rival following his feelings of bitterness and resentment after he was selected by Yhwach. In chapter 634, we are shown events 3 years after Haschwalth had joined into the Sternritter, as he had worked his way up to captain rank, while Bazz-B had just joined the Quincy army at this time. Haschwalth tells off Bazz-B after he tries to challenge him to a fight, warning him that infighting amongst the Sternritter is forbidden and it is punishable by death. We learn that Bazz-B had been repeatedly challenging Haschwalth for a duel, and more details about the situation are revealed from comments made by Hubert, who tells Haschwalth that it must be getting tiresome having that newbie constantly trying to start something with him. He then taunts Haschwalth by questioning how much respect he truly commands as a leader, but he responds by saying that he will do better by trying to follow Vice Captain Hubert's example, leaving him utterly speechless as Hubert notices Bazz-B behind him and threatens to beat some manners into him, but Haschwalth reminds him again that infighting is punishable by death, as he asks if he is really willing to die for somebody like Bazz-B. Hubert tries to say that it's fine because nobody is watching, so it's not like Yhwach will find out, but Haschwalth sternly reminds him that he is still watching them. Now, within these 3 years, we see the growth that Haschwalth's character has undergone. He has grown from a timid boy with low self-esteem to a leader who does in fact command respect, which is proven by Hubert backing off from attacking Bazz-B after Haschwalth's stern reminder. I really love how the conversation between Hubert and Haschwalth begins with a taunt and it ends with Hubert just being verbally backhanded in the most elegant manner. The refusal to fight Bazz-B and the way that he had dealt with Haschwalth succinctly tells us everything that we need to know about Haschwalth's growth ever since becoming Yhwach's second in command. In stark contrast, Bazz-B's character had suffered some regression here, because after joining the Sternritter, he had continuously challenged Haschwalth, desperate to reclaim the pride that he believes was stolen from him. His bitterness prevents him from reconciling with his friend, which leads him to a spiral of anger and self-doubt. Within Bazz-B's mind, the one he had mentored and pitied has now taken what he believes was his destiny. This adds to his feelings of betrayal and isolation. Bazz-B's final confrontation with Haschwalth during the Thousand Year Blood War arc is his attempt to reclaim his self-worth and his independence, as he believes Haschwalth's selection as the reason for his lost purpose. Tragically, Bazz-B's bitterness blinds him to the loyalty that Haschwalth had once shown him. This clash emphasizes the irony of their relationship. Bazz-B, who had once uplifted Haschwalth, now finds himself in the role of the one seeking validation, while Haschwalth has moved beyond the need for validation. So this sums up the entirety of the backstory of Bazz-B and Haschwalth told between chapters 631 to 634. It's only a matter of weeks until this is adapted into the anime, so I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the additions that are going to be made, but until then, let me know all of your thoughts about the backstory of Bazz-B and Haschwalth. If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about the history of either of these two characters, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.